Hi, my name is Robert Chelle with Chelle Law, and I'm an attorney that assists veterinary associates with employment contract and independent contractor agreement issues. Today I'm going to talk about how to negotiate a veterinary contract. So, if you're a veterinary associate, either coming out of school or training, or just switching jobs, what are kind of the most effective strategies in trying to negotiate? First thing is negotiation is about leverage. The person or the individual or the entity that has the most leverage generally is going to do better in any kind of negotiation. If you are just coming out of school, your leverage is at the lowest point that it's going to be in your entire career. So there will be situations where you want plenty of changes to the contract, but the employer obviously must be willing to negotiate or accept some of those changes. And so you're most likely not going to get everything that you would like. Kind of the rule of thumb is if both parties come away, feeling a little bit aggrieved, it generally was a successful negotiation. Now, where you're going to practice, if you have a specialty set of skills or specialty training, all of those factors play into how much leverage you have in negotiation. If you're a specialist, radiology, ophthalmology, any of that kind of stuff, or veterinary medicine, you have much more leverage simply because they're very difficult to recruit. If you're going to go into an area of the country that's difficult to find veterinarians, you will have more leverage. Whereas if you're just coming out of school and you're trying to go into a large city doing small animal general practice, you might have a more difficult time. So what are some things you can negotiate? Well, signing bonus, relocation, compensation, these are all generally negotiable terms. If you find an employer who says take it or leave it for everything, meaning absolutely no changes in the contract, that's usually a red flag. I find those people who are just, tell the veterinary associate, we're making zero changes. You either sign it as is or find somewhere else to work. They're usually very difficult to work with down the road as well. When there are issues that pop up, there's always issues that pop up, not just contractually, but just, professionally at work. Is the workflow right? Are they efficient? Are they staffed appropriately with techs? Is the front office staff scheduling? These are all issues that will come up. And if you have an employer who takes kind of a my way or the highway approach, I find in general those people are difficult to work with down the road as well when issues arise. So if you are in a situation where they just say take it or leave it, it might be smart to just leave it, move on to an employer who's actually willing and open to making changes if necessary. Now, as far as comp goes, as I said before, these are negotiable, but you need to find or have some kind of justification if you ask for something. So if the compensation is at one level and you want it at another, then you need to find some data that supports why you want the change. Either, anecdotally, you have other colleagues in the area who are making X amount. As far as bonuses go, those are very, different in the type of environment you're going into. If you're in a corporate vet practice, you may have a little bit higher of a bonus, where if you're just joining like a one vet-owned practice, it may be much lower. What else? Non-compete terms, certainly negotiable. There's no law that says it has to be X amount or not X amount, unless you are in a state where they're completely unenforceable. A few states have put those into place where they'll say it can't be, more than a year and no more than 5 miles from the practice area. But the vast majority of states, it's kind of a reasonable and a standard. So you need to look at, is this going to be a big problem for me after the contract ends? Scope for a vet is important as well. If you're doing hospital veterinary medicine, you want the scope to say you can't practice in hospital veterinary medicine, or if you're doing urgent care, you can't practice in urgent care. Small animal clinic, equine, any of those. So it gives you other options after the contract is over with. Termination is important and can be negotiable as well, meaning how much notice you have to provide. Some places will try and make it very long, like 180 days notice you have to provide before you can leave. If you are on some kind of like collections percentage compensation and you give notice and you have to work at an organization for 6 more months, they can mess with your schedule. And if you kind of eat what you kill as far as comp wise, they can strangle you out and you're still stuck there, and that's a problem. So putting language in that says they will not reduce your schedule after you give notice is pretty important. So those are just a few things that you can negotiate. Obviously, anything in a contract is negotiable. It's just whether the other party is willing to interact. Now, if you're asking for crazy things, sometimes I'll have an associate who's being offered 120 and they want 220. Well, it's very unlikely that the employer is going to come up $100,000. So when you're asking for things to be changed, they need to be reasonable, or the employer is going to think this person either doesn't know what they're talking about or is going to be difficult to work with, kind of on the opposite spectrum. Whereas if you're making crazy demands, they're probably going to think, I don't want to work with this person down the road, because they'll probably do the same, when they're in practice. All right. If you have any questions about your employment agreement or independent contractor agreement, feel free to contact my law firm at the information listed below in the description. And I appreciate you watching the video. All right. Thanks. Take care.